I'm standing on the porch of the only house I've ever felt safe in, and my mother won't let me inside. It's Thanksgiving morning, November 23rd. The kind of cold that makes your breath visible, the kind that reminds you that you're alive even when you wish you weren't. I've driven 6 hours from the city to get here. 6 hours of rehearsing how to smile, how to pretend everything is fine, how to sit at that table and cut turkey like a normal person whose entire world hasn't just collapsed. My father is standing beside her. Neither of them is smiling. "You're not welcome here," my mother says. Her voice is steady. She's not crying, she's not even angry. That's somehow worse. I'm holding a pie, a pumpkin pie I spent 2 days making from scratch because my mother loves it. The box it came in has a slight dent on the corner. I find myself staring at that dent, unable to look at their faces. "I don't understand," I say, but I do. I'm beginning to. My father exhales slowly. He's wearing the tan Dockers he always wears on holidays. I bought him those Dockers 3 years ago. He's had his hands in his pockets the entire time this conversation has been happening. "We've made a decision as a family," he says, "and you're not part of it anymore." The pie feels heavier. My name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm 28 years old, and until 48 hours ago, I thought my life was finally becoming what I'd always wanted it to be. I'm a litigation paralegal at Hartley and Associates, a mid-size law firm in downtown Boston. I make decent money, not rich money, but enough to rent a 1-bedroom apartment in Beacon Hill, enough to have wine on Friday nights, enough to pretend I'm the kind of adult who has things figured out. I'm organized, detail-oriented, and I remember everything. Case files, client preferences, court deadlines, birthdays. I'm the person people come to when they need something found, or fixed, or understood. My parents were proud of that. They told people at their golf club that their daughter was a lawyer. They didn't mention the paralegal part. I grew up in a beautiful colonial in Connecticut, the kind with black shutters and a circular driveway. My mother is on the board of the hospital foundation. My father is a retired investment banker who plays tennis 3 times a week. I have an older brother, Michael. He's a surgeon. He's married to a woman named Victoria who wears Hermes scarves and never has a hair out of place. We're not the kind of family where things fall apart. We're the kind of family where everything is carefully managed, precisely curated, like a room in a decorator's magazine where no one actually lives. I remember the exact moment everything started to shift. It was a Tuesday in late October. I was at work reviewing discovery documents for a medical malpractice case. My phone buzzed, a text from my mother, "Call me, it's important." My mother doesn't text. My mother uses email or calls directly. Text means she didn't want my father hearing the conversation. I felt it then, a small shift in my stomach, like stepping onto a train and feeling it pull away from the platform. I called her from the bathroom on the 3rd floor of the law firm. No one was ever in there. "Your brother is coming to Thanksgiving," she said, "with Victoria and the children." "Okay," I said. "Michael comes to Thanksgiving every year. Victoria comes now. They usually bring the children for Christmas, but Thanksgiving was becoming a thing. I was genuinely happy about this." "I need to know if you're bringing anyone," my mother continued. "I wasn't planning on it, it's just me." There was a pause, the kind of pause that contains information you're not supposed to understand yet. "Are you sure about that?" she asked. "What do you mean, am I sure? I'm single, Mom, it's just me." Another pause. "Sarah, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." I was standing in front of the bathroom mirror. I could see my reflection, dark eyes, dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, the white blouse I'd worn because I had a client meeting. I looked tired. I always looked tired. "What?" I said. "Are you involved with anyone at your law firm?" The temperature in the bathroom seemed to drop. "What? No, why would you ask that?" "I had lunch with Patricia Hartley yesterday." Patricia Hartley, senior partner, the woman who hired me 4 years ago, the woman whose office I've been inside exactly 3 times. "Okay," I said slowly. She mentioned that she'd noticed you and James spending a lot of time together, in closed conference rooms. James. James Hartley was the son of Patricia Hartley. He was 32, recently divorced, worked in corporate law even though he made significantly more money from his trust fund than he'd ever make practicing law. He had the kind of face that gets photographed at charity galas. I knew this because I'd looked him up exactly once, felt ridiculous, and then never thought about him again. We're colleagues, Mom. We work in the same firm. Patricia is concerned that the professional lines might be blurring. Patricia should mind her own business. I can hear the sharpness in my own voice now, years later. I didn't understand that it was a warning sign, not a defense. When you're being accused of something you didn't do, you get angry. When you're guilty, even of something you don't remember doing, you get scared. I was scared. Did something happen that I should know about? My mother asked. No, Mom, nothing happened. James and I have had maybe 3 conversations. One was about a case. One was in the break room. I don't even know what the other one was about. Patricia seemed to think it was more than that. Patricia is wrong. Sarah, you know how important your father's reputation is. How important our family's reputation is. I know, and I'm not damaging anyone's reputation. I'm doing my job. Well, Patricia seems to feel that. I don't care what Patricia feels, I said. I haven't done anything wrong. But the moment I said it, I understood that I was now on a list somewhere. The list of people who need to be watched. The list of people who might be problems. I hung up the phone, locked myself in a bathroom stall, and sat there for 10 minutes. When you grow up the way I did, you learn to be invisible in certain ways. You learn to be polite and present and helpful, but not memorable. You learn to smile at the right moments and cry privately. You learn that your value is directly connected to how well you perform the role you've been assigned. I was assigned the role of the smart, responsible daughter, the one who would make good grades and go to a good college and eventually contribute positively to the family narrative. Michael was the star. I was the foundation. We needed both. I was happy with my role, actually. I liked being reliable. I liked knowing what was expected and delivering it. But somewhere along the way, I'd become invisible in a different way. The kind of invisible where people see you but don't really look at you. The kind where things can be said about you and you're not in the room to defend yourself. It wasn't until 3 weeks later that I found out what Patricia Hartley had really said. My best friend from college, Rachel, called me. She worked in HR at a different firm, but she had sources. She always had sources. Why didn't you tell me? She asked. Tell you what? That you're dating James Hartley. I'm not dating James Hartley. That's not what I'm hearing. Rachel, what are you hearing? The silence on the line told me everything I needed to know before she said another word. There's a rumor going around that you've been having an affair with James Hartley for months. That it's the reason his divorce was so messy. That his ex-wife is considering suing the firm for knowing about an inappropriate workplace relationship that endangered his marriage. I couldn't breathe. It was like all the air in my apartment had suddenly been recalled by some cosmic landlord. That's insane, I said. That's not true. I know it's not true. I'm telling you, other people are talking about it. How many people? Enough people that it matters. Did Patricia Hartley start this? I don't know, but Patricia Hartley's name is definitely being mentioned in connection with it. I hung up and called James immediately. It went to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. I sent an email. We need to talk. It's urgent. He didn't respond until the next morning. A text. What's going on? I called him. There's a rumor, I said, about us, about you and me being involved. There was a pause that felt like falling. Where did you hear that? He asked. From multiple people. James, did you tell someone something about me? Of course not. Did your mother say something to anyone else? My mother talks to a lot of people. She's Patricia Hartley. Talking is kind of her job. I understood then. I finally understood. Patricia Hartley had planted this seed on purpose. She'd mentioned it to my mother not as a concern but as insurance. A story, a narrative, and then she'd watch to see what would happen. What happened was that the story grew. By the time November arrived, I had been systematically removed from 3 major cases, had been assigned work that was significantly below my skill level, and had been scheduled for a performance review with James's father, Robert Hartley, who I'd spoken to maybe twice. I didn't go to the office Halloween party. I didn't eat lunch in the break room anymore. I wore neutral clothes and kept my head down and became even more invisible than I'd been before. My parents didn't call to check on me. I called my mother on a Tuesday. I told her that the rumor wasn't true. I told her that I'd never been involved with James Hartley in any way. I told her that Patricia Hartley had created the story out of nothing, possibly as some kind of power move or social engineering or something. My mother listened. She said, "We believe you." But the way she said it meant that believing me and believing the story were 2 different things. The story was now part of the family narrative. Whether it was true or not didn't matter anymore. "How is work going otherwise?" she asked. "It's complicated right now, but I'm handling it." "Your father thinks you should find a new job." "I love my job, Mom, or I did before this." "Well, sometimes love isn't enough." I heard her say those words in my memory over and over again for the next 3 weeks. Sometimes love isn't enough. 2 days before Thanksgiving, I got the email. Subject line, Performance Improvement Plan. The email was from Robert Hartley. It outlined areas of concern, missed deadlines, quality issues, unprofessional conduct. The email was polite and measured and devastating. Attached was a 14-page document that was a detailed list of every mistake I'd made in the past year, with dates and specific examples. The thing about being a paralegal is that you have to be detail-oriented. You have to maintain client files, organize documents, track deadlines. It's not creative work. It's precision work. It's work where you're supposed to be perfect. I scrolled through the 14 pages, and I realized something that made me go cold. The mistakes listed weren't all real. Some of them were. There was a deadline I'd missed in March because I had food poisoning. There was a motion that I'd submitted with a formatting error. Those were real. But there were other things. A conversation I'd supposedly had with a junior associate where I'd made inappropriate comments. A client complaint that had never been escalated to me. A time I'd been observed looking at non-work websites, except the date listed was a Saturday when I wasn't even at the office. They'd constructed a narrative around real mistakes and fabricated details. It was brilliant, actually. It was the kind of documentation that would hold up to scrutiny, but only if no one looked too carefully. It was the kind of thing that made you look crazy when you tried to defend yourself because you sounded paranoid, trying to pick apart tiny details. The performance improvement plan came with a 30-day deadline. Improve or be terminated. 30 days would get us just past Thanksgiving. I didn't go to the office on Wednesday. I called in sick. It was true. I was sick. I was running a fever of 102 degrees that seemed to be made up entirely of adrenaline and understanding. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a rumor getting out of hand. This was an organized effort to force me out of the company. The question was why. I spent Wednesday night making lists on a legal pad, the same way I'd been trained to organize case files. I wrote down every interaction I could remember having with James Hartley, every conversation, every email. I wrote down everyone who knew me at the firm. I wrote down the timeline of when the rumor started and who had told me about it first. By 3 a.m, I had filled 6 pages, and I didn't have any answers. What I had was a growing awareness that I was in a situation that I didn't fully understand, which meant I was in more danger than I'd realized. I made a decision that night. A very small decision, the kind that seems insignificant when you make it, but turns out to be the hinge on which everything else swings. I decided to start keeping records. I bought a new laptop, the kind you pay for in cash so there's no record of it. I opened an email account using a false name. I started a document in the cloud, password protected, where I wrote down everything I could remember about the past 6 weeks. Dates, conversations, names, the exact wording of emails. I opened the performance improvement plan and started going through it line by line, making notes about which items were true and which were false, and what evidence I had to prove it either way. I wasn't planning anything yet. I was just collecting information. It's what I'm trained to do. I went back to work on Thursday. "You're not welcome here," my mother says again, and I finally look at her face. She's wearing a blue sweater that brings out her eyes. Her hair is done. She's been to the salon. She looks perfect, like she's about to have a professional photo shoot, not like she's about to tell her daughter that she's been excommunicated from the family Thanksgiving. "Can I come inside?" I ask. "Can we talk about this?" "There's nothing to talk about," my father says. "We've made our decision." "What decision? What did I supposedly do?" My mother looks at my father. They have one of those married couple conversations where nothing is said out loud. Then she turns back to me. "Patricia, Hartley called me yesterday. She wanted to give us a heads up before things became public." My chest tightens. "A heads up about what?" "About the lawsuit," my father says. I don't understand. I'm standing in my childhood home, holding a pie, not understanding. "What lawsuit?" "James Hartley's ex-wife is suing him," my mother says, her voice remaining perfectly calm, perfectly controlled, the way she sounds when she's explaining something to a charity volunteer who isn't quite grasping the concept. She's suing him for infidelity, for having an affair during their marriage. And she's also nomming the firm as a co-defendant because she's claiming that the firm knew about the affair and did nothing. "I'm not involved in any lawsuit. I've never been involved with James Hartley." "Patricia says that you are." "Patricia is lying." "Patricia Hartley is a respected member of the community," my father says. His voice has an edge to it now. "And she's concerned that your behavior is about to become public, and when it does, it will reflect very poorly on this family." "My behavior? I haven't done anything." "That's not what Patricia said." "Of course it's not what Patricia said. Patricia is protecting her son. She's throwing me under the bus to keep her family's reputation clean. She's the one lying. She's the one—" I stop myself. My voice is getting louder, more desperate, and I can see my mother's face closing. I'm becoming the emotional one. I'm becoming the unreliable narrator of my own life. I force myself to take a breath. "Mom, Dad, I swear to you, I have never had a romantic or sexual relationship with James Hartley. I've barely spoken to him. Patricia is lying, and I don't know why, but she is." My mother looks tired now. She looks like she hasn't slept. "Whether it's true or not doesn't really matter at this point," she says. "The lawsuit is going to happen. Your name is probably going to be mentioned. The details are going to be public, and this family can't have that kind of—" "What kind?" I ask. "Shame, drama, the appearance that we're not perfect." "Don't be defensive," my father says. "I'm not being defensive. I'm being excluded from my family home on Thanksgiving because of something I didn't do, and I'm supposed to not be defensive." "You're being excluded because you're a liability," my mother says, and the honesty of it hits harder than anything else has. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I'm truly sorry, but you are." I'm holding the pie. The dent in the box seems to be growing, spreading, like it's infecting the entire cardboard container. "When did you know?" I ask. "When did you decide this?" "Yesterday," my father says. "When Patricia called. We discussed it this morning, and we decided it was best if you didn't come this year." "This year?" "Let's see where things stand when they settle down," my mother says, "and then we can reevaluate. The message is clear. You're cut off. But we'll allow you to hope that someday you won't be, which will keep you from completely severing the relationship that you depend on for your emotional stability." It's an insidious kind of cruelty. The kind that comes with a smile, and an apology and a promise that it's not forever. I set the pie down on the porch railing. "Okay," I say, "okay." I don't cry until I'm halfway back to Boston. I don't cry. I pull over on the Connecticut Turnpike and scream. I scream until my throat is raw and my hands are shaking, and I'm hyperventilating like a person who is drowning in air. Then I stop. I wipe my face, I blow my nose, I start the car again. And I begin to think very clearly about what I need to do next. The thing about being a paralegal is that you understand systems. You understand process. You understand that most people follow the path of least resistance, and the path of least resistance is almost never the truth. Over the next 2 weeks, I do something that Patricia Hartley would never expect from someone who's been designated as the weak link in a power structure. I get organized. I keep my head down at work. I show up early, stay late, complete my assignments perfectly. I become so inoffensive, so unremarkable that people forget I'm there. It's easier than it should be. I'm already invisible. I just become more so. But in the hours when I'm not at the office, I'm working. I create a separate filing system on my hidden laptop. I download every email I've ever received from James Hartley. I check the metadata on all of them. I count them. 17 emails in 4 years. That's how much contact we've actually had. I search the firm's internal systems, the ones I have legitimate access to as part of my job, and I pull James's calendar. I cross-reference it with the dates that Patricia claimed the affair was happening. There's almost no overlap. He was traveling. He was in client meetings. He was in depositions. I find the junior associate who allegedly heard me making inappropriate comments. Her name is Emma Chen. I invite her to lunch. She's nervous. I ask her directly. Did you ever hear me say something inappropriate to you about James Hartley or anyone else at the firm? No, she says immediately. I would never say that. Did someone ask you to say that? No, but what? But Robert Hartley did ask me if I'd ever noticed you and James spending time together. And when I said no, he kind of implied that I might want to reconsider my answer. There it is. There's the mechanism. Suggestion dressed up as inquiry. Implied threat dressed up as understanding. I thank Emma for her honesty and buy her lunch and make sure she knows that I'm not angry at her. I'm angry at a system that makes young women in law firms feel like they have to lie or disappear. On December 7th, I get a call from Robert Hartley. He wants me to come to his office immediately. I take a breath before answering, and my voice is steady when I speak. I'm in the middle of something, but I can come by at the end of the day. No, now. I go now. I take my phone and a notepad. I sit down at the large table in his office, and he doesn't offer me coffee or water or any of the small courtesies that indicate someone still sees you as human. I'm going to make this simple, he says. I'm going to offer you a severance package, 6 months of pay, health insurance through the end of the year, a reference letter that says you resigned for personal reasons, and in exchange, you're going to sign a non-disclosure agreement and a non-disparagement clause, which means you won't talk about this firm, your employment here, or anyone who works here to anyone ever for any reason. I write this down. I want him to see that I'm writing it down. What if I don't sign it? I ask. Then we're going to move forward with the performance improvement plan. And given the current circumstances, I don't think you want that to happen. I don't think you want to be the person who was at the center of a lawsuit involving infidelity and professional misconduct. I wasn't at the center of anything. Optics, Ms. Mitchell. Optics. The firm has decided that having you here is more of a liability than an asset. Because of a rumor. Because of a situation that will reflect poorly on the firm if you remain an employee. And if we go that route, if you fight this, we have documentation that supports our concerns about your professional performance and judgment. The documentation that is partially fabricated. How long do I have to decide? I ask. 48 hours. After that, I'm going to assume you want to proceed with the performance improvement plan, which will likely result in your termination for cause. And that, Ms. Mitchell, is significantly worse for your career than a quiet resignation. I stand up. I'm still holding my notepad. I look at Robert Hartley's face, a face that is not unkind, which is somehow the worst part. He's not angry at me. He just doesn't see me as a person who matters. I need to think about it, I say. 48 hours, he repeats. I don't go home. I drive to a library and I sit down with my hidden laptop and I start making phone calls. The first is to an employment attorney named Daniel Foster. I found him online in a law firm that specializes in workplace discrimination. He's not as prestigious as the firms that represent Hartley and Associates, which means he's angry. I tell him everything. The rumor, the performance improvement plan, the severance offer with the non-disparagement clause, the documentation. I tell him about Patricia Hartley and the strategic planting of the story with my mother. I tell him about Emma Chen and the implied threat. What do you have? He asks. Email chains, metadata, dates that don't line up. A recording of a conversation where Emma Chen admits she was pressured by Robert Hartley to support a false narrative. You recorded her. I recorded myself. I mentioned that I was recording. I'm in a one-party consent state. Good, that's good. What else? Calendar access, the firm's internal systems. I pulled his schedule for the alleged affair dates. The timeline doesn't fit. What about witnesses? 1, Emma Chen. She's scared, but she'll probably cooperate. Okay, Daniel Foster says. I'm going to be honest with you. What you're describing is retaliation. It's constructive dismissal. It's defamation. It's potentially tortious interference if they interfered with your career intentionally. But you need to understand something, Ms. Mitchell. If you pursue this, you're going to be fighting a firm that has significantly more resources than you do. You're going to be publicly associated with an affair that never happened. You're going to have your professional reputation destroyed even as you're trying to save it, and you might still lose. But I might win. Yes, but it's going to hurt. I think about what my parents have already done. I think about how quickly they were willing to discard me. I think about how none of this is my fault, and I'm the only one being punished. I want to fight, I say. Okay, then here's what we're going to do. I don't sign the severance agreement. Instead, I come in on Monday and I bring a lawyer. Robert Hartley's face when Daniel Foster walks into his office is the first truly satisfying moment I've experienced in a month. They don't fire me immediately. Instead, they place me on immediate paid leave while they review the allegations. What they're actually doing is panicking, because now there's documentation, because now there's a witness, because now there's a lawyer who specializes in employment law. On December 15th, the firm's insurance company calls Daniel Foster and offers a settlement, $350,000. In exchange, I have to sign a confidentiality agreement. Daniel calls me at home. They're scared, he says. That's a significant offer for what you've got. I'd take it. What about the fact that everyone will still think I did something wrong? Yes, but you'll have $350,000. I think about the pumpkin pie I made for Thanksgiving. I think about my parents' faces when they told me I wasn't welcome. What if I don't take it? I ask. Then we go to trial, and like I said, it's going to be ugly, but you might win, you might get more money, and you might also lose everything. I need to think about it. I tell Daniel I'll call him back. What I do instead is something that surprises even me. I call my mother. It's the first time we've spoken since Thanksgiving. It's been 2 weeks. 2 weeks where she hasn't called to check on me, hasn't sent a text asking how I am, hasn't indicated in any way that she's been thinking about me or worrying about me. Hello, she answers. She sounds like I've woken her up. Hi, Mom, it's Sarah. Sarah, how are you? That's the question that kills me. She doesn't know. She genuinely doesn't know because she hasn't asked. She's been living in a world where I simply don't exist, and she's been fine. I'm being forced out of my job because of lies, I say. And the people who are doing it because you and Dad already decided that I'm guilty of something that never happened. Sarah, I don't think this is the time. When is the time, Mom? When is the time that you decide to believe your daughter instead of a woman from your tennis club? There's silence on the line. Patricia Hartley is a good woman, my mother says finally, and she's concerned about her family. I understand that. I'm your family. I know you are, but... Then why did you let her define me? My mother doesn't answer, and in that silence, I understand something fundamental about the person who raised me. She was always going to choose the comfort of her social structure over the comfort of her daughter. It was never even a real choice. It was just a question of how quickly she would do it. I'm suing the firm, I say. I have a lawyer and I have evidence, and I'm suing them for constructive dismissal, defamation, retaliation, and tortious interference. Sarah, I'm also planning to file a complaint with the Bar Association against both Patricia and Robert Hartley. I'm planning to contact the firm's clients and let them know that their legal representation may have engaged in fraudulent and unethical conduct. And I'm planning to do all of this very publicly, because I'm tired of being quiet. If you do this, you'll burn bridges with this entire community. Your father. Tell Dad that I don't care about his community. Tell him that I spent my entire life trying to be the kind of daughter who wouldn't embarrass him, and he still chose a law firm and a woman he barely knows over me. So I'm going to give him something actually worth being embarrassed about. I hang up. Then I call Daniel Foster. Don't take the settlement, I say. I want to go to trial. What happens next is the kind of thing that sounds impossible if you haven't lived it. The firm hires a crisis management company. The crisis management company starts calling journalists with their version of the story, which is that a disgruntled employee is trying to extort money from them by threatening to make false accusations. Daniel Foster has a press conference where he releases emails and calendar data and Emma Chen's sworn statement. The story gets picked up by a local news station. Then a Boston Globe reporter gets interested. Then a legal analyst starts writing op-eds about workplace culture and how women are treated in law firms. Suddenly, Patricia Hartley and Robert Hartley aren't just in the wrong. They're the subject of a larger conversation about power and corruption and how systems protect people like them. The Massachusetts Bar Association opens an investigation. The firm's clients start asking questions. On January 5th, exactly 2 months after my parents turned me away from their front door, the firm makes us another offer. $750,000. The confidentiality agreement is gone. I'm free to say whatever I want. Daniel thinks I should take it. You've already won, he says. You've already proven that you were right. But I think about Emma Chen, who's still at the firm, still terrified of losing her job. I think about the next woman who comes along and the next woman after that. I think about systems that are designed to protect people who hurt others. No, I say, we go to trial. Sarah, be reasonable. This is a huge amount of money. I'll be reasonable after they admit what they did. The trial begins on February 3rd in Boston Superior Court. I wear a navy suit that I buy specifically for this trial. I wear my hair down. I look as much like a victim as possible, which is to say I look like someone who is telling the truth. Patricia Hartley takes the stand on the second day of testimony. She's wearing a Chanel suit that costs more than my entire first apartment. Her hair is done. She's calm. She's prepared. She's exactly what she's always been, a woman who knows how to perform confidence and expects that performance to be accepted as fact. Daniel asks her about the conversation she had with my mother. I mentioned that I'd observed what appeared to be a close working relationship between Sarah and James, she says. I was concerned about the appearance of impropriety. You weren't concerned about an affair. I don't know anything about an affair. You told Sarah's mother that James's ex-wife is considering suing the firm because of an affair involving Sarah. I said that I'd heard rumors, yes. But you personally have no evidence of any affair involving Sarah Mitchell. No. And you never, at any point, observed Sarah Mitchell and James Hartley alone together in a compromising position. No. And you don't know of anyone who has. No. Yet you felt compelled to discuss this with Sarah's mother, a woman you barely know, before anything had been formally alleged. Patricia Hartley's composure wavers for the first time. I was trying to be considerate, she says. I thought she should know what people were saying. What people, Miss Hartley? Who exactly were these people? Who was saying these things? She doesn't have an answer, because the truth is that she created the story. She planted it intentionally, like a seed, and watched it grow. The jury takes 4 hours to deliberate. They find in my favor. They award me $3 million. They find that Patricia Hartley and Robert Hartley and the firm acted with malice, with intent to cause harm, with reckless disregard for the truth. I watch Patricia Hartley's face as the verdict is read. She doesn't cry. She doesn't look angry. She looks confused, like a person who has been told that the world operates on rules that are different from the ones she's always understood. The court clears out. Daniel shakes my hand. He tells me I'm one of the toughest people he's ever represented. I thank him. I feel nothing. Outside the courthouse, there are reporters. There are cameras. There's a woman from the Globe asking me how I feel. I feel like I finally got the truth, I say. But what I'm actually thinking is that the truth didn't matter until I had the money and the lawyer and the evidence to force people to acknowledge it. The truth, by itself, has no power. Only facts have power. Only documentation has power. Only money has power. I go home to my apartment in Beacon Hill. I sit on my couch and I look at the phone. I have a missed call from my mother. There are 2 voicemails. I listen to the first one. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I've been following the case. I'm so sorry. Please call me. I listen to the second one. Your father wants to talk to you. We want to make things right. We made a terrible mistake and we want to make it right. I think about what making things right means. I think about whether they would have called if I'd lost the trial. I think about whether they would be calling if I didn't have $3 million. I delete the voicemails. I don't call them back. Instead, I spend the next 3 months watching the aftermath unfold. Patricia Hartley resigns from the firm. Robert Hartley is formally censured by the Bar Association. 3 other women come forward with similar stories about how the firm has treated them. The firm ends up settling with all of them. Emma Chen gets a promotion and a significant raise because now the firm is terrified of her too. I don't go back to work in law. I don't need to. $3 million is enough that I can be selective about what I do, if I do anything at all. But I can't just do nothing. The idle feeling is worse than the anger was. So I hire a small investigation firm, and I start looking into other cases like mine. Cases where women were forced out of their jobs based on rumors and lies. Cases where the system protected the powerful and discarded the vulnerable. I become a consultant for employment lawyers. I become a witness for other women who are fighting battles like the one I fought. I become visible, intentionally, in ways that make people who hurt others very uncomfortable. It takes 2 years, but eventually I'm sitting across from my mother at a coffee shop in Boston. She's aged in those 2 years. She looks smaller somehow, less certain. I don't expect you to forgive us, she says. I just want you to know that we were wrong. You were, I say, profoundly wrong. We let other people's opinions matter more than our own daughter. Yes. We were cowards. Yes. She cries then. Not the kind of crying that's performed for sympathy, but the kind that comes from genuine loss and genuine shame. I don't comfort her. I don't reach across the table and take her hand. I sit across from her and let her feel the full weight of what she did. That's not revenge. That's not justice. That's not even particularly satisfying. But it's honest, and honesty is the only currency I trade in anymore. On the day, exactly 3 years after my parents turned me away at the front door, I'm sitting in my office, a small consulting firm that I opened with money from my settlement, when my phone rings. It's Patricia Hartley. I almost don't answer, but curiosity wins, which is usually a mistake for me. Ms. Mitchell, she says. Her voice is smaller than it used to be. I'm calling to tell you that I've written a letter that's going to be sent to the Massachusetts Bar Association and to every major law firm in the country. In the letter, I'm admitting that I fabricated evidence against you, planted rumors about you, and engaged in a coordinated campaign to force you out of your career. I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do, but also because I've finally understood what it feels like to be powerless. I thought you should know. I don't say anything. I don't expect forgiveness, she continues. I just wanted you to know that you won. You actually won. Not just the case. You won the larger thing. You changed how things work. And I hate you for it, and I respect you for it, which is maybe the most uncomfortable feeling I've ever experienced. Thank you for calling, I say, and I hang up. I sit in my office for a long time after that, just thinking. What I realize is that revenge and justice aren't actually the same thing. Revenge is what I felt when I decided to fight. Justice is what happened when I won. And what I have now, this quiet satisfaction, this knowledge that systems changed because I refused to disappear, this is something else entirely. It's not satisfaction, it's peace. Not the peace of someone who's been hurt and finally healed. The peace of someone who understood that healing meant changing the thing that hurt them. It meant making it impossible for it to hurt anyone else in quite the same way. That night, I go to my parents' house for the first time in 3 years. My mother is waiting at the door. My father is standing behind her. I'm holding a pumpkin pie. You're welcome here, my mother says. I walk past them into the house. I don't say I forgive them. I don't say everything is okay. I don't pretend that this year can be like the years before. But I sit at the Thanksgiving table with people I don't fully trust in a family that hurt me, and I eat turkey, and I survive. And survival, I've learned, is its own kind of victory. The most dangerous people aren't the ones who are loudest or the most aggressive. They're the ones who understand that silence can be strategic. They're the ones who know that the appearance of compliance is a tool. They're the ones who can wait. I waited. And when the moment came, I didn't scream. I simply showed everyone the truth, and I let them choke on it. That's the story, not the kind with a dramatic ending or a triumphant music swell. Just the story of a woman who learned that her greatest power wasn't in fighting back loudly. It was in being smarter, more patient, and infinitely more strategic than the people who underestimated her. They always underestimated her. That was their mistake.